All right. Good evening, brethren, and welcome to our 10th Young and New Masons Interclub social. It means so much to us that you keep on supporting our Sunday socials, and we hope that you've been enlightened by the guests we've had on and taken away some valuable ideas from the new and young or light blues clubs who speak at each of our socials. A special welcome to the Honourable Fraternity of Women Freemasons and the Order of Women Freemasons who are here, so we welcome you, and our special guests from South Africa this evening, Todd Trisman. We look forward to speaking to you very soon, and we hope you enjoyed today's social. Tonight I want to start by welcoming all of the brethren from the Manchester Level Club and the 5 of 9 Club from Warwickshire. I think I speak for everyone here when I say that we are very much looking forward to hearing about your respective clubs this evening. A big welcome also to tonight's special guest speaker, very worshipful, His Honour Judge Richard Hone, QC, President of the Masonic Charitable Foundation. Brethren, please submit your questions for Richard in the chat below. You'll see it at the bottom on your toolbar. And Barry will later on pick those questions to ask Richard, and we'll get you to ask those questions to him yourself. So make them good questions. So without further ado, brethren, Barry's laughing at me. You obviously are all on mute. So if when it's your time to talk, please unmute yourself, and when you're finished, kindly remute yourselves. That would be great. So, like I said, I'm going to welcome Darren Fletcher from the Manchester Level Club to begin the presentation from the Manchester Level Club.
Evening, everybody. How are you doing? Well, usually I'd have my partner in crime, Dean Lynch, in the lovely appointed Volvo lodge room that I come to you from tonight. Unfortunately, Dean can't be with us, but I'm just going to give you a little piece about what the Level Club are and what we do. So we were formed in 2016 by 4 of the younger brethren in Manchester. It started out initially as a group of guys who just went around visiting lodges within Manchester. And then I think I became chairman in 2018, I think it was. And we started doing more and more things. So we did our first Manchester Level Club quiz night in 2018. We raised a lot of money for charity. Since then, we've just done the Yorkshire Free Peaks, which you probably heard of because we shout about it everywhere. And we're just about to do a charity auction this year. As well as our charitable efforts, we're doing a massive skydive next year in Portugal for the MCF. So I hope everybody, at least one or more brethren from each province, will jump on, so it's like a proper national-wide effort. We also do learning sessions every month where we have one of our wisest brethren in the province who comes in, and we do a learning session. He basically gets us to read pieces, and then we reflect and talk about it. So that's pretty much the MLC in a nutshell, really. I'm probably dumbing it down a bit because Dean's not here, but that's it. There's a few of us on here tonight, so I'm not going to slope on about it. That's it.
Darren, you do quite a lot of charitable fundraisers and bits and bobs that are quite prevalent in social media. What is your driving force behind that? Obviously, we're all prone to charitable raising money, etc. But who comes up with the ideas? And you've raised a considerable amount lately. Is it £7,000?
It's, well, by the time we gifted, it was about £8.5 grand for St Anne's. Well, we were looking. Funny enough, that started off. We were looking for charitable efforts, and we was going to raise one for our local MLC. We have a provincial charity, and one of our district charity stewards came and says, we've got a charity that we want to try and get some funding for, but we're not having much luck going down the provincial route. Can you guys help us? So that's when we came up with the 3 Peaks. It's for a hospice based in our province, and these guys need 20 grand a day just to survive, just to keep their services free. So I mean, what we did, we basically kept the lights on for half a day. I mean, it's not, you know, it was a great feat for us, but in the scheme of things, you know, there's a lot more to be done. But yeah, I mean, it's usually a joint effort, so it'll either be me, Dean, or some of the other guys on here. Paul Mantle's on here. We just all basically chat amongst each other, come up with the ideas. But effectively, mainly it's Dean Lynch. He'll just come up with an idea and go, right, we're doing this. So, like I say, this skydive in Portugal next year, I'm like, oh really? Should we do this? I can't do it because of the weight limit. Obviously, he goes, right, well, we're doing it next year. So yeah, he's the one who's full of the drive, and I just sort of fill the dots in between and make it happen.
And as far as your committee goes, is it a big committee? Do you have the standard chairman, secretary, etc., or do you sort of revolve around your?
Yeah, we have a committee. I'm the current chairman of MLC. Like I say, we were supposed to be handing over this year. That's not happened, obviously, because of COVID. But yeah, we have a chair and a secretary, and what we're going to put in place is sort of past chairman. So some of the guys who were past chairman, like one of the founding guys, a guy called Janet, still very much involved with us. So what we're going to do, we're going to set up a panel of past chairman, just as a steering group, just to make sure that we can watch it, just so make sure that the new guys who do take over, you know, they've got an awful lot to look up to. So we'll just be in the background, just staring and saying, yeah, well, we've done this and it works this way. How about doing this?
Amazing. Well, it looks like you're going from strength to strength, and I mean, £8,500 is no easy feat to raise, and you guys really went out there and busted a gut to raise that. So, kudos to you and all of the members that took place. How many members overall do you have in the Manchester Level Club currently?
In the Level Club total, I would say that, well, we don't have a formal number as such, but loosely affiliated with our Facebook page, about 250. Out of that, I would say there's about maybe 30 or 40 that are active all the time. So it's the usual suspects. So if something's coming up, there's the usual suspects who'll get involved. And I would say that's down to about 30 or 40 guys.
Fantastic. And as far as events aside, are you supportive within the province itself? Are you going to see lodges, making yourself?
Yeah. I mean, obviously before COVID, we made it part of our remit, if you would, to do at least 3 or 4 lodge meetings a year. And not only that, the Level Club were also asked by the Manchester districts to support. So whenever we have we have a broken column dinner for all the widows, they'd call on the MLC to come and help to steward the event. Same again with entertainment evening. The MLC is quite busy in that. So we are, like I say, we're an extension of our district, if you like. Not that we're completely independent from our district, but like I say, we noticed that we can help out. It's like a two-way street. Them guys help us out, we help them out. So it's like a two-way street, and like I say, we're lucky that we get quite a lot of support from Manchester district. So.
Fantastic. Well, Darren, it's been great to talk to you. I've spoken to you a lot over the last couple of weeks, and you're a great guy, and your future's bright. I'm sure within Masonry and the Manchester Level Club. It's really good to see.
Keep watching the space.
Yeah, we certainly will. Darren, thank you very much. We look forward to hearing from you soon. We're just going to head over to James Dalton quickly, but if you've got any questions for both James or Darren, feel free to pop them in the chat as well. We'll put them to them if we have time later on in today's program. It's all very professional today. So without further ado, let's head over to 5 of 9 and James Dalton, the chairman of the Warwickshire Young Masons Club.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Brett. It's been good to be with you all this evening. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Not going to bore you to death by PowerPoint, I do promise, but I just want to share with you a couple of slides which I've extracted from a bigger presentation that we tend to give to members of the province or to prospective members of the club. Just a little bit of a highlight about what we do. Obviously, some of this we'll all be familiar with, so not everything on these slides is for this audience. So what's the 5 of 9 Club? Well, just like all of us, we're a club within Warwickshire for new and young Masons to meet brethren of a similar age and Masonic tenure. We've got about 265 members at the moment from across the province. The province is about 3,500 members, and we've currently got about 265 on the books. Of course, as with all new and young Masons clubs, we want to support brethren in creating new friends from outside their mother lodge and to encourage visiting across the province. And we also want to take advantage of learning and development opportunities such as seminars, talks and guest speakers. And we've been really lucky that the Provincial Grand Master, the Grand Superintendent in the Royal Arch and a number of other members of the executive have given us their time to be part of events that we've hosted for members of the club. We like to support good causes in and around Warwickshire by giving our time more than money. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. And then, of course, as with all of our clubs, enjoying social activities, paintball, go-karting, etc. And I always get asked one question about the club, which is, where does the name come from? Well, the name actually comes from 5 forgotten stonemasons from 245-ish AD, who were ordered to create a statue of the pagan god of health by the emperor at the time. They refused, though, because they were Christian, and then these stonemasons were put to death for their refusal to build the statue. So there was 9 that was requested, 5 refused. That's where the 5 of 9 comes from. There's a whole amazing paper on the club website. I won't bore you with the details now, but if you are interested in a little bit of history, check out the website. It's all on there. So what we say to members or prospective members is that we have 3 pillars that we are involved with in the province, and that is charity, social events and learning and development. On the charity front, we encourage, of course, members to maintain the lessons from their initiation. We know that many of our members are going to be young men, many of them will have families, and so a consistent financial donation isn't always possible, especially at the moment. So in light of this, we focus on giving time to support good causes in and around Warwickshire. I'll just share with you a couple of examples. We spent some time at Acorns Hospice a year or so ago, where we spent a weekend repainting rooms and doing the garden for them and supporting them with essentially the labour costs of doing that work. During lockdown, 2 of our members mapped out the distance from our provincial headquarters to Freemasons Hall and back, and then virtually walked that around their back gardens, and they raised over £1,500 in sponsorship for our current festival. And more recently, during lockdown, we've been providing shopping, prescriptions and other essential support for brethren in Warwickshire. They won't be club members, of course, it'll be older brethren that are shielding. And we've done this on over 30 occasions since March. And here are some photographs of some of the events we've been involved with. The shopping bag, that was a momentous moment for us because that was the first time since lockdown that we actually went out and we got some shopping for a vulnerable member of the province. The second pillar, the learning and development, we've partnered with the Provincial Grand Mentor and the executive team to provide sessions for our members. We started this with a Q&A session with the Provincial Grand Master, followed by a Q&A session with the Grand Superintendent. Just a few days ago, we had Worshipful Brother Tony Harvey, who I know many of you will know, the 2012 Bristolian lecturer, did a great talk for us entitled Freemasonry, Does It Live Up to Expectations? And we had a number of our younger club members on that. And we're currently working on another seminar called You're About to Become a Lodge Officer, Now What? Ideally aimed at members who are about to take that first step to inner guard or junior deacon, and a bit of a workshop for them on that. And of course, we're working closely with the executive on more sessions. And there's a screenshot for you, brethren, of the first session we did with our Provincial Grand Master. And of course, on the social side, we have normally regular social events for both members, other Masons and their families, paintballing, go-karting, clay pigeon shooting. We went to Lane 7 in Birmingham. It's kind of bowling, darts, all rolled into one. Curry nights. We do an annual trip to a lodge in Scotland to go and see their installation meeting. Of course, I've had to put this in here as well. Social visits, hopefully once lockdown is over, to come and visit all of you guys in your respective provinces. And we give a lot of our time to supporting provincial events, provincial Grand Lodge meeting, provincial charity events, etc. And again, of course, some photos of some of the events that we've been to. And if any of you have ever been to Birmingham and know what ghetto golf is, that's a bit of a night out, and we've had some time there as well. I can see Mitch laughing in the middle of the screen there. Our membership requirements are that you need to be a subscribing member of a Warwickshire Lodge or a Freemason from another province who lives or works in Warwickshire, aged under 55, and that's it. There are only membership requirements. So we make the club as accessible as possible to as many people within Warwickshire as we possibly can. And that, brethren, is a very stripped down version of our presentation that we give to prospective club members, a little bit about what the club is.
James, amazing work. And obviously, 5 of 9 has been around for quite a long time. Am I right in thinking you once hosted the NYMC conference?
That's right. We did so in, I think it was 2016. I wasn't on the committee at the time. But yeah, 2016, I think, or 2015, we hosted I think it was either the first or the second one that there ever was. I think it was the second one.
I always find it interesting. What sort of differences can you see then when, obviously you weren't in your position you were now, but have you seen visible changes in the club since hosting the conference and to where you are now?
Yeah, I think that, you know, as we've all come together and we've kind of aligned on the ideals of what the clubs are for, it allowed us to become more prevalent in the eyes of the executive and get much more support from the executive in the province. And they've been absolutely fantastic. And I know that, you know, that really has allowed us to take on board some of the great work that you guys have done in your respective provinces, such as charity events you've done, the sponsored stuff you've done, virtual stuff over the course of lockdown. So I think we're becoming a bit more aligned as a group of clubs on the sort of events that we're doing, which is great.
Great. This question is from Matty from Prawsome Semper. He says, do you find pulling brethren together from different parts of the region a problem, or do you have a way around this obstacle?
It has been a problem, and I think it's still a problem at the moment. What we are looking to do as a new strategy, which is a blatant copying of some successes in other clubs, is to have a representative from the club committee in every centre across the province. So we're going to try and get one committee member on board from every centre, and they will be the rep for the club in that centre.
Fantastic. I think that's quite a common thing now, just to have those representatives sort of selling what you do so well. Darren, how does that work for you in Manchester?
We're going down the same route. Like I say, it's unfortunately trying to get brethren together for these events. Sometimes it's like herding cats, isn't it? So it's I don't think any province is on their own. It's really hard to get guys all focused on one thing. So like you say, we're going to be doing that, where we have hopefully at least one person. I mean, Manchester's just Manchester, so we only have one district. We're only based on a district rather than on a provincial level like the rest of you guys are. But that's not to say that we don't allow membership from other lodges, from other districts outside ours. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a rep from each lodge to be an MLC rep within their lodge, so they can tell people, and, you know, promulgate the information down from what we're doing at the MLC.
Fantastic. James, this one's from Barry Hayward. You all know Barry by now, and you know Matty from Essex Cornerstone. He says some clubs want to start putting on regular events for their members. I guess this question comes sort of as we're sort of maybe coming out the other end of COVID. Do you have any plans to reintroduce sort of events, mass events?
Yeah, we do, and we're really conscious to have a balance of events. So, you know, we'll have some which are learning and development and education, like the ones I've already outlined. We'll do some seminars with the provincial mental team, but of course the social events are really important as well. We have actually just recently, or we haven't, but some of our members in another capacity have set up a provincial rugby club. And so what we're looking to do is sort of do a family barbecue to welcome brethren out of lockdown. Put on a rugby match, have a barbecue hosted by the club, you know, in conjunction with the provincial rugby team. So let's hope that all goes to plan. But who knows when it's going to happen?
I guess that's the $1 million question at the moment. But yes, it's good to have plans, but whether you can execute them is the other thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And finally, probably the most important question of the evening comes from John Porter of Manchester Level Club. Darren, why are you in a Volvo?
John Porter, of course. It'd have to be John Porter, because I've got very small kids and they'd be absolutely terrorizing everybody if I was on a Zoom meeting right now. So the Volvo's like my sanctuary. I do most of my Zoom work from the Volvo, and it's air conditioned. So
amazing. Just one last question for you, James. You may or may not be able to answer this, but it says, James, this is from Adrian Peters of Cambridgeshire Light Blues. He said, you have 265 members, but how many Light Blues have you got within that number?
It's a rough estimate, but I did only recently look at the membership database. I think it's around 50 to 70%. So it's a relatively good percentage. We've got a number of lodges in the province that are affiliated to universities, and so one of them I'm a member of. And so what we have a program for those lodges is that the lodge will pay their subscription fee to the club, at least for the first year. And so that allows us to get quite a high proportion of pretty new brethren into the club. We do, of course, have some dark blues like myself, but that tends to be more for the administration side of things.
Yeah, great. All right, lovely. Brethren, thank you for your questions for both Darren and James. Please keep the questions coming for Richard. He will begin shortly, but if you could have your questions through whilst he's given his talk, that'd be great, and we'll put them to him towards the end of today's session. All right, thank you to both clubs for giving a great talk and presentation, and it gives me great pleasure now to introduce our special guest speaker for this evening. Very worshipful bro, His Honour Judge Richard Hone QC, President of the Masonic Charitable Foundation. And if, like me, you've always heard about the Masonic Charitable Foundation, but don't know too much about it or what exactly they do, this is a great opportunity to find out. Richard, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mitch. That's really kind. It's a huge pleasure to be able to communicate what MCF is doing, because, as you say, it's a relatively new organization, and it's not particularly well known to everybody. But I must say I was really pleased to hear what's going on in Manchester and Warwickshire, because you're doing fantastic work, and we at MCF are hoping to emulate that. I thought I'd just start off by saying, how did I get involved in Masonic charity? It goes back really to the 275th anniversary of Freemasonry in 1992, when I met up with the then president of the Freemasons Grand Charity, Raymond Lai, and we got on terribly well. We had a really fantastic 4-day event in Earl's Court and elsewhere. And after a while, I became a trustee of the Freemasons Grand Charity. And I did 9 years there, working out what the Grand Charity was supposed to be doing, mainly, of course, supporting the needs of distressed Freemasons and their families. And that was very valuable work. That came to an end after my 9-year tenure as a trustee, and I moved over to Masonic disciplinary appeals, because my day job then was senior circuit judge at the Old Bailey, and they thought I might be quite useful in dealing with Masonic disciplinary appeals, so that filled in quite a gap. What is interesting, you probably know that the 4 basic charities which have now emerged were starting with the Royal Masonic Trust for Girls and Boys, the children, and then the Royal Masonic Benevolent Institution for the old people, and then Grand Charity. And then following on from that, there was the Masonic Samaritan Fund, which took over from the Masonic Hospital, which had to close down through unhappy circumstances. And the Samaritan Fund paid for medical grants and so forth. And by 2008, it was decided by a wide group of provincial Grand Masters from sitting on the Provincial Grand Masters Forum, that it would be a good idea to make the 4 charities into a single charity. And that was very encouraging. Initially, I thought this was going to be quite difficult because a lot of people were wedded to the individual charities. Many people liked the idea of supporting children. Many people liked the idea of supporting old people. Many people liked the idea of the medical help that the hospital had been able to give. And so I thought it might be quite difficult to work it out. Freemasonry does move relatively slowly. And so from that start in 2008, it took us until 2016, a period of 8 years, to work out all the possible pitfalls of an amalgamation of these 4 existing Masonic charities into a single Masonic Charitable Foundation. But that time was actually very well spent. First of all, the thing that happened was that the 4 charities came together in the lower ground floor of Freemasons Hall in a single area. And so they weren't split up into 4 separate and sometimes quite divisive entities. And it was very important because there were 4 trustee boards, there were 4 chief executives, sometimes rivaling each other for supremacy, and 4 different properties. And this was generally a rather ragbag effect, which wasn't efficient. And quite rightly, the Provincial Grand Masters as a whole thought it should be rationalized. In 2012, I came back to Grand Charity as the president, and I was able to input into the discussions between my brother 3 presidents into the final form for Masonic Charitable Foundation. And that was a really interesting process. It took some time, but it was worthwhile. And the end result was that as from the 1st of April 2016, the Masonic Charitable Foundation came into being after quite a lot of legal and other work. And I was, not entirely astonishingly, but much to my surprise, chosen to be the first president of the United Masonic Charitable Foundation. And it's been a tremendous success since then, not through my efforts, but through the efforts of the staff and so forth. So the first point is that Masonic Charitable Foundation is now in charge of all the former funds and all the premises and the assets of the earlier Masonic charities that were individual. And that is a surprisingly complex process. You'll readily appreciate that 4 trustee boards, 4 chief executives, and 4 sets of premises meant that the expenses of the charities were really quite considerable. And from 2016, we cherry-picked we picked 5 trustees from the 4 original Masonic charities to form Masonic Charitable Foundation. And we had a really strong and effective trustee board right from the start. There was some worry that individual trustees from the individual previous charities would try and take over the show, but that didn't happen in the real world. In fact, quite the reverse. Everybody has been working to further the progress of the consolidated charity. One of the most important things after Masonic Charitable Foundation was started in April 2016 was that previously all the individual charities had been ring-fenced with the most appalling amount of partitions and divisions. As from 2016, we actually moved to a separate area where everybody was part of the same office space with no partitions at all. And my great joy was to pull down the partitions and reinvigorate the lower ground hall of Freemasons Hall so that there were no partitions at all. And that meant that our 92 members of staff were able to interact freely and without any restriction from partitions. And actually, they were able to find their way around what is quite a complex lower ground floor area. But without partitions, it's become much easier. And that's actually meant that the staff have come together as one. And I can't tell you how important that was, because previously it was 4 individual charities doing their best, to some extent interacting. But with the complete removal of partitions, and the Grand Master himself opened the new single system in 2016, and it has proved absolutely amazing in a culture change. It really has become a template for the Masonic community to work as one. The 4 trustee boards, now only 1, we are now, after 4 years in MCF, starting to turn over our original trustees and get some new blood in. And I'm terribly enthusiastic about that. We've got an enormous number of committees. We've got 12 committees, which is a huge number, dealing with everything from property to finance to every other area, particularly risk aversion in today's world. And perhaps the biggest business enterprise is what was the Royal Masonic Benevolent Institution, the care homes, where we have 18 care homes that we run now as MCF, all around the country, not particularly evenly dispersed, and we're working on that. But we've got 1,090 Freemasons in our care homes, and we have something like 1,400 staff in the RMBI Care Co, which is a completely separate part of MCF. It is ring-fenced because we don't want MCF to have the liabilities of a care home business should things go fatally wrong. But of course, the RMBI is still able to engage with the funds of the MCF. And in that way, it is a very satisfactory organization. Just so that you know, you've heard a lot, I'm sure, about care homes and the terrible statistics of deaths in care homes throughout the country. MCF actually has an unrivaled pride in the way that RMBI Care Co has coped with that. We were the first to get on board over £1 million of PPE equipment for our care homes, thanks to the care company's administration. And so the 18 homes were absolutely perfectly equipped with PPHE, to ensure that everybody was safe, the staff and so forth. Inevitably, there were some deaths in the care homes, not too many, I'm glad to report, nothing like the figures that you hear from outside Masonic care homes. But we did inevitably suffer some deaths, but they have been kept to an absolute minimum. And I'm glad to report that at the moment, although we have people recovering from COVID, we've had very, very few recent deaths. So that's an enormous encouragement. But that's just one of our areas of operation. And as I say, it is ring-fenced. MCF's primary purpose is to look after poor and distressed Freemasons and their families. And we take that incredibly seriously. We've built it up over a long period of time. And it involves grants for daily living expenses, grants for medical treatment, support for carers in the family homes, mobility equipment, particularly stair lifts and wheelchairs for those who are disabled, and also children, young people, education, and computer equipment. And funds are made available for higher education up to the age of 25 for every sort of children of Freemasons, stepchildren, grandchildren, and all sorts of other children that not godchildren, I have to say, but all other children are catered for. And that is a really important part of our support to the Masonic community. I thought you might like to know a little bit about the finances, because all our funds basically come from Freemasons. We don't rattle tins on street corners or obtain very much outside funding. Sometimes people are generous from outside, but we don't seek it. And so the Masonic community contributes 73% of our income. And that is a phenomenal matter of pride for all Freemasons, because unlike many charities that specialize in, say, children, medical grants, other areas restricted, we are a cradle-to-grave charity. And so we look after the young and the vulnerable, we look after the distressed, we look after those who are elderly, we look after those who need medical treatment, and we look after, in particular, national charities, which are a very important part of our overall strategy. And just to top up where the money comes from, 73% from Freemasons, 17% of our money comes from our assets, which we've built up over 300 years. And I'm really pleased that in our 2018-2019 assessment report, which is on the MCF website, mcf.org, if you want to Google it, only 7% of our income is spent on our expenditure of our extraordinarily dedicated staff of 92 people. And when I was looking at the website recently, I was very struck. Each of the teams gives a presentation on the website, and they say, why do we like working for MCF? What's special about it? And what they all say is that there are the three key pillars that we have, which is responding to the need of Masonic brethren and also national charitable communities, which we try to serve. So responding to their needs, when we assess their needs, making a difference to the individuals whom we support, not just the individuals, but also national and local charities. And so making a difference is a second strand or pillar of our strategy. And finally, most importantly, striving for excellence. We want to be a leader in the field. We are, I think, in the top 100 of UK charities, certainly in England and Wales. We'll leave Scotland aside because they're separate. But we are quite a big charity in terms of assets that we've got built up over 300 years, which are very, very precious and must never be wasted. And we want to build on that, to strive for excellence, and to show that in our governance and in our administration procedures, we are actually second to none. And I think we've made very good steps in that direction. And I'm really pleased that every one of our 92 staff members say, no day is ever the same. It is always interesting. We do make a difference, and it's tremendously uplifting for the staff to be able to see that what they've been able to do is to help people and raise the profile of the charitable work that we do. And this would never really have been so successful under 4 separate entities with 4 separate administrations and 4 separate areas of expense. We think we've saved something like £1 million a year in going to MCF as a single entity, and that all goes to charity. And as I've said, our great flagship is that our expenses are 7p in the pound, so 93p in the pound goes to charitable enterprises. And that isn't half bad, if I may say so. And just to, if I may, just for a couple of minutes, because I'm running out of time, just to tell you what we've been doing with COVID. Phase 1 was quite difficult because nobody had a clue of where the needs were. But we have been able to work with UGLE and the provinces. What UGLE has done is to formulate 9 regional communication groups of the 47 provinces and London. And each of those groups was given £100,000 by MCF to distribute on COVID-related matters. And that means £900,000 plus £100,000 for Metropolitan in London. And each provincial lead in the regional group assesses what the money should be spent on. And at MCF, we have a small group of people who validate the recommendations by the provincial groups. And that way, we actually meet what the provinces want us to do and what Metropolitan in London want us to do. And that is joined up thinking, about which I am particularly passionate. And so, in addition, just to fill in the gaps, because the provincial groups have anything from 4 to 9 provinces in them, there will be gaps. And so we gave a further £500,000 to each individual province, and that's £10,000 per province and £10,000 for metropolitan, to utilise those sums for the relatively small grants. Never forget, £2,000 to a small charity makes a phenomenal amount of difference. It really does. And so that's been a great success. And we've come more or less to the end of phase 1 now, and we're going to start with phase 2. And what we've done is to start a relief chest to be contributed by all Freemasons and the provinces to build up a fund for phase 2, because COVID is not going to go away. There may be a second wave, and we need to be well prepared for that. That relief chest, to my absolute amazement, has raised over £1 million, and MCF is match funding that with a further £1 million. And actually, all being well, we may do a bit better than that. So in the relief chest at the moment, there is £2 million for phase 2. And at the moment, we're still in discussions about where that money should be placed. But we think that the areas of greatest need are food banks, support for carers, and also hospices and so forth. And we are undertaking a consultation exercise at the moment of where we are going to put those funds. In particular, abuse refuges have become a very significant feature of provincial giving. Phase 1 was largely PPHE equipment and food banks and carers in particular. And we've given about 200 grants to the regional communication groups and the 9 provincial areas for that. So we've done our stuff there. We've spent £1 million there. We're spending £1 million on phase 2, and we've interfaced a further £1 million. So our total for COVID is £3.6 million over and above what we do on an everyday basis for poor and distressed, for the national charities, and to some small extent, international disaster relief. I hope that gives you some idea of the scope. MCF is quite a complex operation. I've had to drill down into the detail, and we had something like 35 separate funds of between £10,000 and £1 million, which we've had to work on to make sure that they remain effective. But the work goes on, and we are exceptionally well placed. And I just want to end by saying Masonic Charity is truly a terrific force for good. It's not just the MCF, because every province does its share. And with our latest strategy, we've been able to show that over £47 million a year is raised by Freemasonry for the community. And MCF is spending about £25 million each year on its various activities. And that, I think, concludes my very brief jog around how MCF has been doing over 4 years. We are, I hope, getting better and better, and we have annual strategic reviews to make sure that we continue the good work. So enough from me, and if there are any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Richard, thank you very much indeed for that very interesting talk. For me, like I mentioned, the MCF has always been a big part of what we do, especially in Freemasonry, but one, probably because I've never had to call upon it. Two, maybe wasn't sure how. Your talk has been very insightful, and I hope it sort of appeals to a lot of people who maybe think, oh, I could apply for that, maybe I should. What would you say to the people that maybe aren't sure if they should apply for a grant from yourselves, or unsure if they fit the criteria?
Don't hold back. Two areas are really good. We have a brilliant advice and support team, but usually the best way to approach it is through the province or the lodge, who will put the individual in touch with a visiting volunteer. And every province in London now has a setup of visiting volunteers. Speaking for myself, I can't bear filling in forms. We now have a single form, which is relatively easy to fill in. But if you're like me and don't like filling in forms and aren't terribly good at it, the visiting volunteer will come and sit with the individual applicant and help them fill in the form. And that goes to the grants team and can be accessed really quickly. And we are striving, particularly in today's world with self-employed people, loss of jobs, loss of employment. We have engineered a fast-track system for short-term emergency help to those who suddenly find themselves unemployed and without funds and in distress.
Fantastic. And it's all on the website. There has been a link put in the chat already. Thank you to Catherine Alter for that. They're very well ahead of the game there, so I really appreciate it. But do click on there. It is very good. It's very insightful, and it's very easy to use if you need to get on there.
It's a very user-friendly website, actually, and I've been trawling it for some time now, hoping to see areas where I can improve. But on the whole, it looks pretty good to me.
I think you need a bigger picture of yourself on there, Richard. That would, I think that would do it.
Well, I'm the least important cog in the wheel. I just do the overview, and when things go wrong, I get called in.
Fantastic, and we hope that's not very often.
Not very often, but it does happen, and I've had 2 or 3 events where I step in. But my line manager is the deputy grand master, so I have to be pretty clued up for him, because he asks some fairly searching questions, as you can imagine.
I can imagine.
And he's in charge of Masonic Charity.
Yes, I wouldn't like him breathing down my neck, that's for sure. Richard, thank you very much. Right, before, as per usual, and before we head to the Q&A, we've got plenty of questions to ask you, Richard, so do stick around. Barry, are you okay just to do the quick screenshot, and we'll do some of our publications. So as per usual, brethren, if you just hold up whatever you're drinking and show us your pearly whites, we'll take a picture. Barry, over to you.
3, 2, 1. All done. Thank you very much.
Very good. Okay, over to you, Barry. Thanks.
Richard, thank you for that talk. It makes you feel immensely proud as a Mason to know where your money's going and the kind of the good causes that it goes to. So thank you. The first question that I have is from James Dalton, and actually before we go on to that, we've got quite a lot of questions, so we will try to get as many done as possible, unless we need to kind of get you back, Richard, to record another extra where we can ask you these questions, but we'll try and get as many done this evening as possible. But the first one's from James Dalton from the 5 of 9 Club. James, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. My question really is just around the festival program, and it'd just be interesting to know what percentage or what contribution the provincial festivals that happen every sort of 7 years or so, what percentage of the total revenue that contributes?
The answer to that is 43%.
Amazing, thank you.
Festivals are fantastically important, and we're reviewing. The whole festival system is under a review at the moment, but speaking for myself, I think it works so well at the moment that it would be a pity to change it. And everybody enjoys the festival. We have 4 festivals for MCF each year from 2021. The former charities still have some ongoing festivals this year and part of next year, but the festival system is amazing, and I think it's fabulous.
Just a follow-up question from myself, Richard, on that one. There will obviously be provinces that have festivals in flight at the moment, and they will have been severely impacted by the COVID situation and not being able to reach their targets, I guess, is the question I'm looking forward. Is it just a case of them revising their targets, or do they just have to work harder when we come back?
I think it's a mixture of both. Knowing provincial Grand Masters in festival at the moment, they would be sorry to change their target. I am cautiously optimistic that we will be able to survive this. It does, of course, depend on whether there's a second wave and how much longer meetings and fundraising activities are going to be impacted. But because, in a funny sort of way, we're all saving a bit of money, some of us may be able to spare a bit for festivals out of saved funds, but that's an individual situation. But let's see how we go. This is uncharted territory. Nobody will be surprised if targets slip somewhat, but Freemasons are amazingly adaptable and achieve astonishing feats that you wouldn't normally think possible.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm going to take the next 2 questions together, and I'm going to read them out because you've heard enough from Mitch today so far. They're about your kind of Masonic career and where you began, and also you spoke about the disciplinary side of things for Freemasons in the hearings there. Could you kind of give us a little bit of information about your Masonic background and what Masonic disciplinary hearings are?
Well, I started at university and then joined a London lodge and went through the various ranks there, becoming master, and then of course went into chapter and 1 or 2 other orders. But my real interest, I think, was kindled in the 275th celebrations in 1992, when I got rather more into the mainstream. I didn't have time to be a deputy director of ceremonies in London because my work as a lawyer was taking up most of my time, but the charitable side I could do out of hours. And then, because when I became a judge in 2004, fairly obviously I was pinpointed as somebody who might be on the Commission for Appeals for those who'd been found guilty of Masonic irregularity by the province, and they have a right of appeal to the appeals court. And under Sir John Chadwick, who was a Court of Appeal judge, rather senior to me, I did quite a lot of those, and it was extremely interesting, giving people a fair hearing and seeing if there had been irregularities. But then slowly one got caught up more and more into the charitable area. And I suppose, I would say as president of the Masonic Charitable Foundation, I've got one of the best jobs in Freemasonry, but the president of the Board of General Purposes would say the same thing. And the Grand Director of Ceremonies also says the same thing, both his predecessor and himself. And so we all think we've got the best job, and we all love it to bits, I think.
Great, thank you. The next question we have is from Adrian Peters from the Cambridgeshire Light Blues. Adrian, over to you.
Richard, do you think the Brethren would benefit from a MCF leaflet to explain what great work?
Sorry, you suddenly...
Adrian, you've muted yourself mid-question.
Sorry, Richard, do you think the Brethren would, technical, do you think the Brethren would benefit from a Masonic Charitable Foundation leaflet to explain what the Masonic Charitable Foundation does at the beginning of their career? And would you think that that would benefit the charity further by doing it?
Yes, I mean, on the website you can find any number of brochures that we issue. I mean, they're quite easy to access. I'm sure actually that on initiation it wouldn't be a bad idea to have the latest impact report of the Masonic Charitable Foundation as the pack given to the new initiate, or indeed on his raising. So yes, I completely agree that that would be the case, but it is something that can be accessed very easily on the website, and not enough people seem to be using the website. And so in today's world, I think it's a reasonable thing to expect people to access it. And if they want further information, the team are always willing to talk to people who want a discussion about that. They enjoy that.
That's great, thank you, Adrian. Matthew, the next question is for you.
Hello, Richard. What I was going to ask, I guess it's along the lines somewhat as what you just answered in some respect, but my question was, what do you think would be an effective solution to get newer and younger brethren on board to help get behind the MCF and all the incredible things you do as an organisation? Because obviously the newer and the younger guys coming in eventually going to be these guys, and it creates some longevity to Freemasonry in the end.
I think the basic thing is for the provincial Mason to show to the provincial Grand Almoner or the provincial Grand Charity Steward that they are actually interested in Masonic charity. And if that interest is something that bears fruit in the province, then there is the opportunity to become a committee member of the MCF and eventually possibly a trustee. And we're very much on the lookout for younger people. Not all the younger people have the time that is required for committee membership or trusteeship, but as time goes on, they may be able to play a really useful role. And we need to encourage the young. That's obviously the case.
Thank you, Richard.
The next question is from Paul from the Manchester Level Club. Paul?
Hi, thanks. My question is more around just some of the amazing numbers that you've spoken about tonight, and we all get to read through various publicity and stuff internally within Freemasonry. But it does feel a little bit like it's the best kept secret, that we don't really seem to shout about it outside of Freemasonry. It's quite evident that that the media and various pieces, like a bit of a conspiracy theory. Perhaps we could try and soften some of that with some of the great work that we're doing with some of the charitable and support donations that we do.
The answer to that is we are working very, very closely with Chief Executive David Staples and UGLE, who are very sensitive to the fact that we aren't getting our message across. I think we're doing better, but the MCF Communications Group works very closely with Michelle Warville at UGLE. And between the two of them, if you actually read the results of what they've been doing, we've had an enormous amount of local press approval, particularly provincial press, but the national press is more difficult. And London tries to deal with that because they had a fantastic £2.5 million grant to the London Fire Brigade for Grenfell Tower prevention step ladders, which has been phenomenally successful under Sir Michael Snyder, the Metropolitan Grand Master. And I work quite closely with him because he does a fantastic job in highlighting what London Freemasonry does. And I'm very dedicated to walking hand in hand with Metropolitan, with 33,000 Freemasons, as well as the provincial supporters who fund the festival system for us, which raise an enormous amount of money. We are getting there. I've encouraged us to work with high sheriffs, lord lieutenants, and community leaders in focusing that Freemasonry is not something that should be looked at as scants, but should actually be looked at as a positive force for good. And I think we are getting there. And one day we'll get the Church of England on our side, and some of these annoying clerics who regard Freemasonry as not a good thing, but still sometimes manage to accept some of our money, will change their tune. But it will take time, but we are pushing the boundaries more and more and better. And that's another good thing about having MCF as the single entity, so that 4 individual charities don't have to tread the same path, each of them with less significant results. We are now quite a serious force in charity law.
We're kind of getting on for time, so I'm going to ask one more question, and we'll pick up the others at another time, which we'll share with everybody. And this question is for James, and James has had to leave, so I'll ask it on his behalf. So he said, I know the MCF is for Freemasons and their families. If a brother was in need of help, how would they go about getting help from the MCF?
Basically, either get onto your lodge and or your provincial Grand Almoner, or get straight onto MCF and the grants team. They are there to help, and they will give the individual guidance, advice, and comfort. They are a sensationally good team, if I may say so. I've seen them at work, and they do a fantastic job on behalf of all of us. So that there's no reason not to get in contact. And even if in today's world the phones are busy, if you leave a voicemail, they will, I promise you, get back to the individual, because no call goes unanswered for more than a couple of days.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to leave the questions there because we do like to give everybody some time back on a Sunday, because obviously it's a bank holiday. You might have got other things to do, but we will pick up these other questions with Richard at some point, and we'll put that recording up for everybody to hear. Richard, thank you for answering those questions. It's been extremely insightful, and I will hand back to Mitchell.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Barry, and thank you for everyone who posted questions. Like Barry said, it is our extra videos we do are very, again, very insightful. We ask the questions that we don't have time for, and they're good fun as well. So do pick that up on our YouTube channel. just subscribe. It'll be all on our Facebook page later. And also please tell your friends, your Masonic friends and the brethren to join our Facebook page too. So yes, we do like to finish on time. I just want to say another big thank you to the Manchester Level Club, in particular Darren Fletcher, for coming on and telling us all about their club and his club, and 5 of 9 James Dalton. Thank you very much. It's great to hear from you once again. Very insightful, and we look forward to hearing you again soon. And Richard Hone, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Enlightened is the word, and I feel very much more knowledgeable about the MCF. Brethren, we'll put some links up to the MCF websites on our Facebook page, so if you do need to go on there, please see the links, and we will see you in the Young and New Masons Interclub Social Extra, which will be uploaded in a couple of weeks. Brethren,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.